Welcome to my video on translating expressions. So you're going to be able to write verbal expressions as algebraic expressions in sentences as equations and vice versa. Now today we're only going to look at translating expressions, but eventually we'll look at equations as well. So what is an expression? We have a numeric expression, and notice it only has numbers and operations. So numeric expressions have only numbers and operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. Now, algebraic expressions, if you look at this example, has numbers, operations, and one or more variables. Now, the example that I showed there, 2r plus 17, only has one variable, but it could have more than one as well. So what is not an expression? An equation is not an expression because expressions do not have an equal sign. So if you see an equal sign, you know that it's not an expression. So it says, which of the following would not be classified as an expression? So I'm going to box in the word not and underline expression here. And then I'm going to look at this note. Equations are different from expressions. Equations have an equal sign. So if I look at this, which one is not an expression? I notice that they all have numbers and variables, and they're either adding or multiplying together. But if you look at G, you see an equal sign. So that's an equation, which makes that not an expression. So now let's look at the sort. So sort the following into equations versus expressions. So if it's an equation, it's going to have an equal sign. If it's not an equation, it won't have an equal sign in this case. And eventually we'll get to inequalities, which is greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to. So look at the first.
Stephen to the office, please. Stephen to the office.
Look at the first example. We have 4ab, that's an expression. 3 plus 2 equals 5 is an equation because it has an equal sign. X plus y is an expression. 2x equals 10 is an equation because it has an equal sign. D divided by 6 is an expression. And 72 plus 4 is also an expression. So notice all the equations had an equal sign and expressions did not. Turn the page. And now we have a vocabulary chart, and we're going to sort them into addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division words. So I'm going to try to shrink the screen here so that we can fit them all on. Okay. Now I'm going to read the word. I want you to think about it before I put it in the column. Plus. Good, that's an addition word. Quotient. That's a division word. Of. This is a tough one. This is multiplication word. Twice. Multiplication, and it also means to multiply by 2, so I'm going to put a 2 here. Triple. Multiplication. And it means to multiply by 3, so I'm going to put a 3 there. Difference. Subtraction. Sum. Addition. Product. Multiplication. Subtracted from. Subtraction. And I'm also going to put a star in here because this is going to be a special case where we're actually going to switch around the order. And we'll come back to that later on in these notes. Less, subtraction. Decrease by, subtraction. Minus, subtraction. Less than, subtraction. And I'm going to put a star by this one. This is going to be one of those special ones that we'll come back to. Divided by, division. Separate into equal parts, division. Increase by, addition. Multiplied by, multiplication. Oops. And that's an I right there. More than is addition. And it's also going to be one of those special cases. So notice special cases have than and from in it. Fewer than is going to be subtraction. And there's another than word, so put a star. It's going to be a special case. And then the last one is added to. And put a star there. That's going to be another special case. So we'll come back to those when we're doing the examples. So let's turn the page, or look on the next page in your case. It says going from verbal expressions to algebraic expressions. 4n equals 4. 4n equals 4 times the number. Do not write 4x n because this means 4 times n. However, x can be a variable when we're talking about algebra, so we try not to use the x anymore. We will use number in front of letter. And then 4 divided by n equals 4 divided by a number. Do not write 4 division symbol n. We usually write it as a fraction. So keep that in mind when we're doing these examples. So it says underline vocabulary and decide which operations will be used. So the product of 4 and a number increased by 7. Well, product means multiply, so we're multiplying by 4 and a number. We're increasing it by 7, which means we're going to add 7. The next example says the quotient of 10 and a number. So quotient, 10 and a number plus 5. So I know quotient means division, so we're going to write it as a fraction. So 10 divided by n plus 5. Okay, example C. Half the number of books minus 10. So there's that of word. So half the number of books. We're going to use the letter B and make sure the B is kind of in the middle, not on the bottom. Minus 10. Okay, example D. 20 decreased by twice a number. So we're going to take 20. Decrease by means subtract, and twice a number means we're multiplying a number by 2, so 2n. Notice I didn't use the x, I just put the number in front of the letter. Okay, look for switch around, circle, than, or from. So we talked about those switch around words. We starred them in the chart. So we have 2 more than. I'm going to underline that keyword. Or actually, I'm going to circle that keyword because it's a switch around word. The product of 7 and a number. Now, because it's a switch around word, I'm going to send it to the end. So I'm going to send the 2 to the end. So that means I'm adding 2 to the product of 7 and a number. So I write 7n plus 2. So instead of writing 2 plus 7n, I write 7n plus 2. Because I'm saying 2 more than the product of 7 and a number. Okay, now look at the next one. 2 subtracted from. So circle the quotient of 30 in a number. So 2 subtracted from the quotient of 30 in a number. That means I'm subtracting 2 from the quotient of 30 in a number. So I got to send that 2 to the end. So I'm going to write -2 at the end. And in front of it, I'm going to put the quotient of 30 in a number. Because the 30 came first, I'm going to put 30 over n. So 30 over n minus 2. Now, 6 less than twice Emily's age. So 6 less than, I'm going to send that 6 to the end, so minus 6 at the end. And how do I write twice Emily's age? I'm going to use 2e, e for Emily. Okay, let's look at the last page. It says the use of commas can change the meaning of an expression. So it says 60 increased by a number multiplied by 2. So increased by means add, so 60 plus a number multiplied by 2. Now, I know the number comes first, so yes, use n2, but we don't write n2. We always put the number in front of the letter, so we're going to say that's 2n. Now watch what the comma does. 60 increased by a number. So that means I have to group this together. So 60 increased by a number, I'm going to group it together using parentheses. And it says multiply by 2, so I have to multiply that whole thing by 2. And the only way I can show that the whole thing is being multiplied by 2 is to put parentheses around it. So when you see a comma, stop and put things together. Now, do you see grouping words? Okay, so sum is a grouping word. So it says twice the sum of a number and 5. So that means I'm going to group the sum.
Donation for your hat, please go to the cafeteria at this time. They will be taking up those donations. Thanks and have a great Friday.
Okay, pardon the interruption there. So twice the sum of a number and 5. So I have to group the sum of a number and 5 together, and I have to twice it. So I'm going to multiply the whole thing by 2. So sum of a number and 5, group it together, and multiply by 2. Now, triple the difference of 6 and a number. So I've got to group the difference together. So 6 and a number, I'm going to put the 6 first because it came first. And I'm going to triple it. Now let's practice writing some expressions. And there's more than one. I'm just going to write one here, and then we'll talk about some of the other ones you could write. So the one that I'm going to write for this one is 4 times a number decreased by 3. Now remember, I could also use 3 less than 4 times a number. I could use 4 times a number minus 3. There are so many different possibilities, but I just wrote one here. Now, look at the next one. I have parentheses around n minus 3, so I have to use a grouping word different. So I'm going to say 4 times the difference of a number and 3. Okay, and I could say the product of 4 and the difference of a number and 3, but I've got to use difference here because it's grouped together. Now look at the last one. I've got to find a way to group the addition together, so I'm going to use sum. So I'm going to say the sum of 7 and a number divided by 4. Because I used the word sum, I grouped it together, and then I can divide it by 4. I could also say 7 plus a number, comma, divided by 4. If I used a comma, then that would also group it together. That concludes my notes on translating expressions. I hope you have a great day.